Hi, this is Ross Payton with Role Playing Public Radio. This is RPPR episode 73, The Complexity Complex. And with me, as always, Tom Church and special guest Caleb.
Yeah, you know who I am. Why you don't like me? Why don't you say hi, Caleb?
Caleb's the new flavor of the month.
Everyone loves you, Tom. I love you, Tom.
You heard it here first. I'm awesome again. Caleb sucks.
It's a mutually exclusive thing. Your love is a limited, finite thing that
you see. But you see, the thing is, Caleb and our lives are intertwined. If something happens to one, it happens to the other. So therefore, we are eternally locked in a dance of death in this world.
This got dark pretty quick.
This is news to me.
Yes. Anyways, we're back.
I meant to tell you about that.
As I mentioned earlier, I went to China last.
Oh
month.
yeah, like hi Russ, I went to China. Yes. I saw the world.
I saw a large part
and
of it.
I took care of your lizard.
Yes.
That was my contribution to your wonderful journey.
It was. I brought back souvenirs. Everywhere.
Yeah, you did, but sorry, I hardly think they make up for the fact that you got to see another vibrant culture.
Well,
and I got to see your lizard and hope this wasn't the day he finally decided to poop.
Well, he pooped the day after I got back. Does that help?
He at least did that for me.
Yeah.
Your lizard was looking out for me.
Yeah.
I'm sure this is riveting listening.
Yeah, it is.
And now everyone knows when Ross's lizard pooped.
Yeah.
That's what you tuned in for, America.
It's not just America, it's the world.
Hey, well, come on. The countdown of Mifune pooping was probably more exciting than that weird TV show where, what other guy said, what team is he going to join after Cleveland?
We're real sports fans here at RPPR.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Did they score goal units?
Yay! Go, my favorite sports team, go!
My favorite squadron won the intramural.
The competition. Score
I'm out for a while. I gotta laugh about this.
Score many goal units.
All right. So anyway,
LeBron James. That's
the point is, we're back now.
Yes,
and we have so much great stuff
Caleb,
to talk about.
Pace do you need some water?
In this episode, we're going to be talking about complexity and how, like, for me, going to another country, seeing how things are, realizing that things aren't so simple. So we're going to talk about that as it applies to gaming. But first off, we have some news. And in fact, Caleb would like to kick it off because he's got a very special announcement for all you fans. Listen.
Hey, everybody. I hope some of you are like me. I mean, you can only love Tom, apparently. But I am finally putting up the Kickstarter for No Security Horror Scenarios in the Great Depression, which will release Bryson Springs, which some of you may be familiar with. I'll be offering Lover in the Ice as a bonus scenario for contributors, but it will be a 3 PDF scenario package of horror RPG scenarios that are translatable to many other systems, whatever your go-to system is. And that all take place in the 1930s American Great Depression. So one of the games has been posted. Lover in the Ice has been posted. We've recorded the playtest of the other two. Those will be offered as rewards. And Ian Moody is doing the art. And Violet has done the art for the trailer, which is worth watching for that alone, because I don't want to put my face on the internets. But I have Cartoon Caleb now, and Facebook profile pictures forever. You should give me money. I would appreciate it.
And actually, the thing is, Caleb's face, it's like looking at Katana Thoa. It will mummify you alive if you look at it.
Tom, just that bitterness and the pettiness just comes right out. Just like
if I don't do that,
dagger
he will not,
right in the kidneys, right?
He will not.
Right on the air.
He will not feel appreciated if I don't do that.
I do.
I just compared him to an old one, Ross.
This will be released as a ransom model PDF, I should mention, right? And this is
yes.
You're going to set up your own website for this, Hebanon Games, is that right?
Yeah, I'd like to do more stuff in the future if this doesn't completely tank. Please don't make this completely tank.
Yeah. So consider this is not like an official RPPR thing. This is a spin-off. Basically, all the money that goes to this Kickstarter will go to Caleb, Ian, and Violet for their work in creating these PDFs that everyone will be able to enjoy. So
I've put some money down initially to provide some preview artwork for the people watching the trailer and that might be interested in contributing. But the money will go towards layout, web hosting, buying more artwork, things of that nature. So I would really appreciate anybody's help, and we would like to make Kevin on Games a thing that I might do during summers when I have time off, supplemental game releases for various systems. So No Security is kind of our test run. I'd hope it goes well. We have a number of pretty cool rewards that I think are pretty original in the RPG tabletop Kickstarter community. And hopefully we can do stuff later on if this meets, like know something else.
Yeah.
For those who might be listening. So we'll see.
Yeah. You want to phase that in gradually, right?
Yes.
You don't want to eclipse, though, the main
No,
side.
I wouldn't want to do that.
see.
It's just a phase.
Yeah. We're very
I
good.
could have contributed to that, but the mic wasn't in front of me.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, because I'm too cheap to get multi-tracking for more than 2 mics.
Yeah, I could have bought another mic, but
No, it's not the mic. It's the It's the audio.
I could have gotten a
interface.
new one of those.
Yeah, they're
But
more
Ross
expensive.
went to China and left me to look after his lizards.
That
So
doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
I didn't say it had to, Ross.
Yeah, so anyways-
bitterness makes no sense.
Tom is yeah. Anyways, I would also like to say just again
I
a
missed
very
you so
special
much.
thank you to all the subscribers to RPPR and all the contributors, all those who donate to help keep the website up and keep it up and running. And also, please review us on iTunes if you ever get a chance, or whatever medium, whatever website or podcasting app. I know we just recently signed up for Stitcher, so if you have a mobile smartphone, you can use that.
And I'm sorry we don't edit ourselves.
No, I edit this show.
I said ourselves, Ross.
Okay, all right.
For instance, like, if I were to suddenly utter the word motherfucker, you
Yeah.
wouldn't go in and blank it out.
Because I'm lazy and I don't care.
You're right.
So let's.
So really, you have Ross to thank for that.
Yeah, quality
I mean,
control.
I suppose
quality is important here.
I suppose I could edit myself, but
yeah,
the thought of that just makes me sad.
yeah. Makes me indifferent. So, anyways,
Exactly.
let's get back to the topic, the complexity complex, and by that. I'm not going to make this show obviously about just, hey, I went to China, it was awesome. But
It was in some ways, though, right?
yeah, it was. And I saw 3 cities, Shanghai, Dalian, and Beijing. And I got
Those
to
are
see-
places.
Those are places. Thank you, Tom.
I'm helping.
And let me see that, life, I mean, we tend to be very reductive in our thinking. I think most people are. They tend to think that their way of life, what they do, is the average, is the norm. I mean, that's why we
Kind of
tend to buy.
ethnocentrism.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, it's not even, specific to ethnic groups or whatever. It's just sort of it's a very cultural thing. Like, we just think, that there are, Hollywood tends to think that there are these universal myths that supersede all things. And while, these blockbusters are very popular, that they make, like the Avengers or whatever, overseas, but you go overseas and you see that, things are very different over there. Not just in the very obvious ways, like they speak a different language and they look different, and
They value different things.
Yeah, they eat different food. Like,
Boy, do they.
yeah, they do. But it's a lot of the minor things. Like, for example, the Chinese really believe that cold drinks are bad for you. Like, so they don't use ice. They don't really refrigerate drinks. They think that hot water is good for you, so you drink hot water at restaurants if you ask for water, unless you specifically say no, I want cold water.
Then they look at you like you're, weird.
Westerners,
like,
foreigners,
Americans.
silly ocean people. So that's the equivalent of, or the exact version of what foreigner means is ocean person, because they come from the ocean. So anyway, so maybe start thinking about games and how some of these things that make life complex can be put into games and make the games better. And that's obviously the goal for RPPR, is to make games better, make your games better.
But yeah, like what you were saying about, it's just assuming that your culture, everything will be the same. That, I think it really comes out in games that have like non-human creatures in them.
Yeah.
Intelligent ones.
Right.
That and this works in fantasy as well as sci-fi.
Yeah.
Like, I've been in some like Star Wars games where wholly different alien creatures are basically just humans that are actually Americans that are bugs.
Right. Well, and it's not even that. It's like you have like, oh, we're the planet of bug people. And the thing is, the planet of bug people only have one culture. Like, there's like the bug person language. Yeah, one language, but there's not like dialects or accents or like cultural differences between like the bug people in the North Forest. Oh man, they eat grubs and they're gross. But the people in the South Forest, oh, they eat rats and that's really tasty. It's like they don't have that kind of differences. And like in fantasy games, like in D&D, what's the fucking thing? They all speak common.
In fact, the language is even called common.
And, people just, GMs tend to, I think in a lot of role-playing games, I think, Caleb, you were talking about how language tends to be depreciated in role-playing games in general, right?
Well, as a skill, yeah, because it's not a skill that you do things with. It's a skill that if you don't have, you are denied something. You know, if you don't have the language of the NPC, you're denied vital plot information. Have fun. Like, ooh, that's fun.
Yeah.
So that's not good. So I think that complexity is an extremely important topic in games. I think it could go too far, which I think we'll talk about.
Yeah.
But I also think that it needs to have a clear idea behind it. So I have no problem with everyone speaking common, if that's as far as we're going to get into the linguistic thing. But if you want to rake a game about like some quasi-French language police for the bug people nation that punish, wrong verb forms with death, yeah, okay, that might be interesting. Or if you want to do like Sapir-Whorf hypothesis and be like, they speak a different language, so they have a different concept of reality, or something of that nature. I think complexity really adds to a game. I don't think a lot of people get into role-playing games because they're really into participatory theater. There might be some. Good for you. But most people probably get into it through sci-fi and fantasy settings. And the rush of those settings is that they're real worlds that show you the way things are not. And that's, in order to do that, in order to have that verisimilitude, that feeling of being real, it has to be sufficiently complex, other than like, oh, it's Earth in America, but there's magic. You can't go too far down that road.
Yeah.
So.
Like Earth with magic would be simple. Like, that wouldn't fucking change everything. Like it's like, it's all the same, but
But even with like different species and languages, I mean, it doesn't. You don't have to make it complex. I mean, if you're doing sci-fi or fantasy, it's the equivalent of either a universal translator or like a tongue spell. But you could still throw in something like, okay, say a creature that is a completely alien creature that now through magic or technology can now create the words you can understand. Doesn't mean they're going to talk the way someone else would. And just a little bit of work on that can make all the world a difference. Just make them understand that they're going to have different thought processes.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have you don't have to create you don't have to do a whole like avatar new language thing.
Well, I mean, I think there are degree. I mean, the key thing for complexity is, you mentioned we can't be too complex, and there are a ton of examples we'll go into about that. So you can't be complex about everything, because then you're really not being complex about anything, because the game can't run. You just don't have that kind of processing. Essentially, that kind of.
Let me spend the next 4 hours explaining the proper dining etiquette with the queen of the ant people.
Yeah, exactly. You can't think about it, when you're running a game, you have limited basically processing time, like brain processing time in which to explain things to players, and time in which player comprehension is your very limited resources. You have very little of it. You have to make sure that they comprehend the right things.
You're shooting a scene in a movie. You have unlimited budget, but you have a shooting schedule you have to get through. Yeah.
Well, no, and you don't have an unlimited budget. That's a lie. Because of reasons. But I get your point. So you basically my idea is that you can be selectively complex about certain things in certain scenarios. That
if they enhance the story,
focus on different things at different times, and make that enhance the game. Because one thing is, going against the language thing, is that travel tends to be glossed over in games. Like, you just go, we go from point A to point B. When in real life, like some of our greatest heroes and in the real world, are people that are just fucking, their accomplishment was going from point A to point B.
Marco Polo,
Lewis and Clark, and basically mountain climbers.
Magellan, even though he didn't make it.
Yeah, exactly.
What?
God damn it, Magellan, you suck.
The fact that only one ship and 17 men made it back.
Yeah.
Pussy.
Yeah, exactly. Take that, dead navigator guy.
He didn't even make it through the freaking Pacific, man.
So you get the idea.
Lame.
So you get the idea of like having to figure out how to travel and what the challenges are.
Which, depending on the scenario, travel could be a very quick, useless thing, or it could be epic.
Well, I mean, the thing is not to make it like a challenge every single time. Then players would never want to challenge. The idea is to make it like interesting every, as to vary up the endless gunfights and negotiation scenes, which most.
Okay, like a plane ride from Newark to Miami is not going to be probably not going to be an epic journey.
Yeah,
but if you're if you're Magellan setting sail from England to circumnavigate the globe,
right?
Then you got an epic story of travel.
It doesn't even have to be like extensive, but like even in like in a sci-fi setting like Eclipse Phase, in the No Evil campaign, where we're these badass sci-fi guys, we frequently had to deal with travel issues, like for example customs, in the sense that in the lunar tier, we have to ditch our guns after every habitat because hey, guess what? They don't want you to take guns into these habitats. So
what are they afraid of, man?
And one of the games that I played in that I loved a lot was the World War II game where we were civilians in Nazi-occupied Europe. And just going through the city was a challenge because there were all these fucking checkpoints. And you had to deal with that kind of bullshit all the time. And I could see how... So there's making travel interesting. So...
Yeah, with any issue of complexity, you just have to have a story reason for it. Or else it needs to be story time. Like you said, if you're just taking a plane ride and nothing happens on the plane ride, you need to be like, all right, you do that stuff. And you're there. Like, it needs to be very fast and cut away, transition.
You got annoyed by the TSA guy.
Yeah, you could have, like, little NPC flavor stuff, but nothing like that. I think if you're going to add complexity in your game, it's got to somehow be meaningful. So, say your party goes and they come into some new nation with a new language, and they're anarchists, and they don't have words for prisons or laws or crimes. Like the idea that there are specific rules and that those rules are transgressed and something like they don't even possess the concept. How does your thief character deal with his identity? He's found a culture in which his defining characteristic, the fact that he commits crimes, no longer exists. Like it's not even a concept to these people. How does he interact with them? How do you do things? That's meaningful complexity. Not
how do you explain that? How does the thief explain what he does to these people? Like, I take things from people, like I'm doing right now. Like, what is that? How is that a job? Like,
that's not useful.
You're an object taker. What is that?
Yeah, exactly.
Are there schools for that?
Yeah,
that's interesting complexity.
Yeah.
However, having worked in a number of bureaucracies in my day, there's also not interesting complexity. Like, you have to file 6 red forms and a blue form instead of 7 yellow forms. And another, like, that stuff is currency exchange, unless there's something vital behind it and somebody just wants to buy a healing potion or something. Not terribly interesting.
Like the movie Brazil dealing with that is not...
Yeah, don't turn into the Brazil GM. But yeah, if you can find something meaningful to say in your story with that, that's great.
Well, I mean, and not just like major story things as well. Like, I think complexity also adds like what the equivalent would be of local color, like the sense like as you're traveling through this place, like you forget that you're in a different environment. Like, I would spend some time describing how the food is different, how the customs are different, what like some of like as you pass by the valley of the the silent scream, and like what's that all about? Oh well, and then you just like the guide tells you like, oh, here's a story about the basilisk, and oh, the knight stabbed it and there was a scream, or he was frozen as he was screaming, and it's like
actually I was in one of the D&D games I was in had a moment I appreciated. We were going through a Yuan-Ti city, which are like snake people, And the GM, he didn't make a big deal of it, just casually mentioned, oh, and there are no staircases. Since the majority of people slither, there's just ramps and like kind of like spiral tubes. It was it didn't even matter. We never used it, but he mentioned it, and that's like just a little quick thing you can throw in, like, oh yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah, that does. That's a really great detail, and that adds a little. And like, was dinner just a bowl of live rats, and like, here, help yourself.
I mean, the thing was, the scene. We were on a diplomatic mission, so we had to, play the part of yes, we're negotiating. Oh, yes, and it was a lot of, live. Well, live animals, but animals that were killed that moment. Mm-hmm. And also, they asked all the human characters to, we ask one thing: could you please put this perfume oil on your skin? The smell of human flesh is quite bad to us. Mm. And trying not to say you stink. But
nice.
there's just little details but the staircase thing was what really stood out for me.
Yeah, I could see that. One of the things just going through China, one of the experiences I have that would be a really great thing for role playing would be just they have street markets everywhere. There are vendors selling fruit and everything like that, but they also have night markets that they just set up on the streets or the sidewalks, and you just have dozens of vendors selling everything from underwear to books. But they also have everyone and food. They also have vendors that actually sell weapons, not guns, but knives, nunchucks, and tasers, and they're just there, next to the fucking children's toys and the puppies. They actually have dogs as pets too. I mean, they unleashed, of course, but that would be interesting. And they're crowded as hell. They're just wall to wall. But so if you had a fight scene in some industrial city in China, you just have people just running by. Oh, here we go, knife. Just grabbing weapons. Exactly, grabbing weapons as they run along. So there's a lot of it. We don't think of that. We tend to think of businesses have stores, they have hours, it's very formal, there are practices, but everything.
And you don't barter for price.
Yeah, we're not a bartering culture. Haggling is another thing. That's another thing that language. I think language, even in a setting with universal translators and shit like that, or tongue spells, you would have language as you need the skill to navigate this culture. You would if you don't have this skill, you can't. You just gonna piss these people off. You're not gonna get in. They're never gonna trust you. Because you don't know how to barter. You don't know what the cut. There are different ways of bartering. There are different. Different body spaces. Americans we stay far apart when we're talking. But certain other cultures, you get right up in each other's faces. The Chinese, they don't care about lines, cues or lines. They just you just go. So that kind of cultural knowledge is sort of one reason why a skill would be very useful. So,
well, it's not just more work for the GM either. So, with Tom's example, the first thing I thought, I'm okay, if there's a fight scene in there, if I'm a player, and I'm fighting people with feet and stuff, is it cold? Do the ramps ice up? Does it just turn into a slip and slide if it's wet? That would have logistical concerns if you want to, even for your power gamer, just out to murder everything.
Yeah.
That's an interesting idea that they can incorporate and feel good about themselves for having paid attention to a setting detail in a game. So, yeah. For example, when you guys, which hasn't been posted yet, but when you guys are in an anarchist habitat and get in trouble, you guys took that and ran with it eventually after struggling with the anarchist concept for a while, because when you did some horrific things and got caught for it, and it was a matter of popular vote to live or not, it became high school election law, because there's no law to transgress, so it became let me meme-engineer my own defense and get people on my side, because that's all there is. There's popular vote.
It's a more awesome Hunger Games.
Yeah, and I thought you guys really felt good about how you handled that. And it was just a difference with complexity.
And to be fair, the people we did those horrific things to totally deserve that.
Yeah, well, I didn't say that. So, yeah, you need to give them things like that, not just for flavor, but it also leads to really interesting role-playing situations.
Yeah. So, I mean, we kind of talking about setting details, basically things that are... but complexity isn't just about setting, about what's going on in the game. It's also the game itself. I mean, we talk about, complexity, a lot of people, judge, RPGs by how complex the rules are. Rules lighter versus, from all the way from Rhesus or Everyone is John to, say, Cinnabar or Phoenix Command.
Or Palladium.
Well, no, Palladium is not Phoenix Command. Phoenix Command is way worse than...
Yes, I haven't seen anything more complex, at least combat-wise, than that.
Well, Hero, maybe. I don't know.
That's all of that seems complex.
Yeah, that's true. So...
when you have to use equations... in a game, it's too complex.
So the idea is how much complexity do you have in do you accept it? And everybody has different preferences, but I think again, you have to be selective. You can't enforce all the rules in a big game. Like any D&D or any of those other RPGs or like the thick hardback. You can't enforce everything equally. So like encumbrance rules or things like that. But I know I mentioned this before, like in a game where you're traveling through the desert, then the encumbrance rules, hey, that might be a really interesting rule to enforce because
I think you don't have to you don't have to remember the rules all the time, but there are moments where story wise they can really play a good part.
Yeah,
it's just like in case like encumbrance rules, as you just said, like I really don't want to worry about that until you actually are in a situation where it would matter.
Yeah,
then it's good to have them.
Yeah.
Or like dehydration rules or things like that.
So again, I think it's
how much water do you have to boil that spaghetti in your Italian tank?
The Battle of World War II or the African campaign. I can remember the most complex World War II war game ever that has never been successfully played or completed. I think I don't know. But
if you can prove that it has been completed once, tell us.
Yeah.
Seriously, we want to know.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
We want to meet the old men who sit in their chairs.
If I was rich, I'd buy a copy of that board game. I'd just make a web series about trying to play it, and then it would fail after a few episodes. But yeah, anyway.
Well, I think there's a lot of variance in the rules too, depending on who's GMing. I think you have a lot of wiggle room there. So, for instance, I always have hit locations even when there's no hit location in the system.
Yeah,
because I know one thing that really bothers me as a player is in combat, which is a pretty vital scene logistically as to where everybody's standing and doing anything.
Yeah,
when you're like, you're hit with damage thing that takes off health point on your avatar, but it's just really all right. I'm playing a game. I don't imagine a scene at all when I see that. So even in Call of Cthulhu, I tend to be like, when you take so many points of damage. There's a hole in your arm now. I at least tell you where it's at because that's more horrifying and more realistic. So I think with depending on the GM, there's a lot of that because Call of Cthulhu is by no means a bad role-playing system, but you're going to get a lot of variance as to how complex it is depending on who's running it.
Yeah,
but there are examples like Phoenix Command or Cinnabar or
I know some people have mentioned Eclipse Phase being too complex,
mega damage and whatnot. I can totally see that.
So I think again,
it intimidated me from running it for a long time.
Yeah, I think that was more the setting complexity than although the rules complexity didn't help either. I mean, it's not. And then Wild Talents again, the one roll engine, just getting off that front curve of matches, not looking for specific numbers. That's a bit of a
the errata helped Eclipse Phase infinitely.
Lot. Yeah,
so much better than the original margin of success, margin of failure system. But also Eclipse Phase is as complex as you want it. If you want to run Eclipse Phase and just say there aren't any fabbers, you have this gear.
Yeah,
it's roll under, game some modifiers, give your characters one handout. And let them gain modifiers in combat, and then it's pretty simple to understand. But if you just open up the fabricators and get nano this and quantum that, and it's going to be fucking hard to keep track of. So yet again, I think it's a lot of GM variance as well. So I don't know.
So again, it comes down to not just. So Tom, you were going to say.
Well, I'm thinking that combat is its own special monster when it comes to that.
Yeah, I know you mentioned something about on one end, too simple. I think most people can agree is the model. I hit, you hit.
Essentially the stereotype of D&D combat.
Yeah, or RPG combat in general.
Yeah, it's just basically you roll, you hit, then roll for damage. All right, what do you do?
Yeah,
and I totally agree. Hit points are fine for a video game.
Yeah,
but an actual RPG where you're actually in a fight for your life, it's going to matter where you get hit. And so I agree. I think combat needs hit location rules.
Oh, really?
I really do. I think every combat system needs to take that into account. Because if you get an arm disabled, that really changes the way you're going to fight.
Yeah.
Especially if you're the sniper and you can't fire sniper rifles anymore.
Yeah.
Or it also works for players too. If you have an enemy sniper and you want to take if you if he's like heavily armored, but you want to disable him, like you can aim for an arm. Like, okay, one hit rendered him useless.
Yeah.
I think it's really important to know where you hit somebody, and also realistically, some weapons just you shouldn't roll damage for. If you hit a guy with a law rocket, you shouldn't roll damage. That guy's dead.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not against abstracting things. So, like, my favorite system is still a dirty world.
Yeah.
And you can't get more abstracted than everything. And that, like, every role is this combination of identity and
emotion.
Like different emotional appeals. So that even combat is, but that works perfectly for noir, where people get the other 11 bejesus beat out of them to the point where they would die 10 times over. And they still, John McClane it through because they're a private investigator, and that apparently makes you impervious to bullets and fists. Yeah. And that makes sense in the context of the game. There's nothing stopping the GM from being descriptive in that. Like, you have a split lip, your fedora is crushed, your trench coat has a bunch of holes in it. That makes a better experience for the player. But for GMs that aren't quick on their feet with that kind of stuff, I think combat rules like hit locations and stuff can be extremely helpful for them.
So, you kind of it really depends on what your preferences are, what you're running, what you're trying to achieve. But I think the thing is, you need to. I think every game needs some complexity, and you can't whether it's setting or rules or a little combination thereof. I mean, even the games that we do at RPPR, I think even our rules light games have some complexity. Like, for example, our 1980s League of Extraordinary Gentlemen game, which was run in Wushu, which is extremely rules light, and everybody was being very silly during that game, but it still
you had to.
Right, but we still had the complexity, but the complexity was knowledge of pop culture from the 1980s, which
we have an abundance of.
We do, and not everyone does. So it was like the whole thing was a play on these sort of concepts and sort of like a referential, postmodern comedy, or if you want to get all conceited about it, but. So, going back to some of the ideas, when I came back from China, one of the ideas I had for the game that I'm going to be running for the group at some point is a Iron Heroes game. And I know I've mentioned I've wandered around this before, but I finally came up with a solid idea. And for me, one of the things that I realized was just because China had all these, I saw that they had street vendors selling everything from fruit to books to, tasers,
knives.
To knives on the streets and swords. Actually, I forgot to mention they had swords. They had cheap imitation katanas at all of these stands. So I wanted to do a game we tend to forget, and I also read a book while I was there called The Stealth Nation, which is about the global informal economy, talking about street merchants and informal businesses all around the world. Like in Nigeria, how everyone there, like Nigerian merchants, go over to China to have them contract to build 1,000 generators, and they bring them back over because the electrical system is so bad there that they need that kind of thing, those generators to run their businesses. And what I realized is one thing role-playing games almost always ignore is business. And, we always were either, heroes or villains, fighting crime or, fighting some evil or something like that. But, the majority of the world is about business, making money, making some sort of trade.
Well, most players, we weren't earning money, but we do it the old-fashioned way of killing for it.
Yeah, so I wanted to do a game that would sort of focus on that, but in a very interesting way. And so the idea is that the players are all veterans that of some army that's been disbanded because the general was dishonored. So they're all disgraced soldiers, and they grab some supplies from the remnants of their camp, and they see another army marching in the distance. And if you read up in the medieval times and ancient times, armies didn't have logistical divisions. They didn't have Hal Burton fucking contracting to sell them shit. They had peddlers following them along the world, selling them shit. So that's the campaign. Is the idea is that contrast your former soldiers turn merchant. So what do you stay my main thing
do you
is
embrace your new business ethic, or do you try to remain warriors?
Badass. My thing is every time you level up, you get to choose whether you level your character up and make him more badass, or you level your business up and make your business more effective and more efficient. So I want to see how that campaign, that dynamic works out. And so that's just one idea I had. I think that from going around and seeing new things. So I don't know. So Yeah, so for example, using this as a setting, what kind of things do you think I should emphasize in this, like in terms of the rules and in terms of the setting?
Well, I think
So this is Iron Heroes. It's Conan-esque. All the characters are martial. Like they're just warriors. There's very very low magic. I haven't even decided if there's going to be monster. Well, I mean there'll be monsters, but I don't know if there's going to be monsters, humanoids or anything like that.
I say that's just me. But
what if you could be a Germanic barbarian, Tom? A Teutonic barbarian?
Yeah, no.
Really?
It wouldn't be the same.
All right.
But anyway, no. I would think one thing I would also like to focus, play up a little bit on just the disgraced part.
Yeah.
That we're even if we get really successful businesses. It should. I think we should always remember that. I think it'd be business badassery, or I think maybe a third, regain some of our honor.
Okay, so the idea is one of the things I want to do at the beginning is that each character will have to specify two goals. One is one that can only be achieved by getting enough money, and so it could be getting a dowry so I can, or getting enough money so I can marry the girl that I love and going back to my village and being, settle down. Yeah. And then another goal that can only be achieved through violence, like killing the guy who killed my father, for example, as a cliche, or killing the guy that disgraced our army, or the traitor in our unit or something,
or disgrace the guy that disgraced us,
or becoming the champion of the blood pit arena or something like that, because you got to know there's going to be a blood pit arena. There's a franchise of them. And I'll set the campaign in the Silk Road, ancient China. Very, very mythological. All the historical research will be Wikipedia. So think like Hercules or Xena level of authenticity. So anyway,
Well, I think with that, you'd really have to focus on the social norms of wherever we're traveling. Because if we're running a business and we're like Bronze Age or whenever it is, we're not gonna be running any kind of business that has sustainability so we're not going to be farmers. No one's going to be
your peddlers
trading and it'll be stuff that we get by hook or crook.
Yeah.
Or it'll be stuff that we won't have actual businesses because at this point it's not global.
Yeah.
You're pretty locked down if you run a business in anything other than the modern century. So I think social norms would be cute because one thing that did exist, although not in the forms of flyer, you have to advertise it. So what do people want? What's a status item in this community of the Bronze Age? How do I make my cleaver for battle more attractive than that other guy's cleaver for battle? Is it use the finest in dwarven enchantments, even though I just pulled it off some dead guy in a battlefield we looted?
Can I lie?
Yeah. So I think social norms would be a key there because, how do you get the person to buy your stuff over the other guy? And it's not going to be much of a challenge if it's rice.
Yeah.
Everyone needs food. I buy your food because we need food. That's not particularly engaging.
Well, I definitely want to have some variance in what you can specialize in selling and how difficult. The rarer, the more valuable items will be harder to acquire. If you want, if the soldiers really want, dragon scales or basilisk scales or whatever to put on their helmets, but that's really fucking hard to get because you have to kill a basilisk or get somebody to kill it for you.
Yeah, you can only fence the silk you stole off that caravan, which you murdered every man, woman, and child to get, to refined class royal merchants. So, how do you square the fact that you're some blood-soaked pillager of the highways with all this stuff, and you gotta talk to, Lord von Prissy-Pants?
I think that also...
Hey, the way to do that, you have a face man. The attractive guy. Or woman.
Well, that's the thing is also do you cooperate or do you compete? Each of you will have your own personal goals, but you need that much gold or you need to do this. So you can hoard the gold yourself. You could corner the rice market or you could focus on the high end goods or you could try and work together so you all pool your resources together and have one business. But then you have to trust each other. The guy who's taking in all the money, man, is he skimming off the top?
Or if you do allow lots of humanoids, okay, you have the human noble over here who he's trying to get money to reclaim his family honor. Yeah. Then there's the orc over there that he wants 30% more of his body soaked in blood of his enemies.
Yeah.
And how can we how can our goals intertwine to create a whole?
Yeah, exactly.
You speak funny words.
Well, it also comes up in strategies and character generation in the sense like how many like you have skill points and then you have class abilities. And I'll come up with some new class abilities that are just business related. So do you put all your points into fucking social skills so you can lie and cheat your way or haggle your way, or do you put them into combat abilities so you don't die during the when the bandits raid or whatever, or do you put them into normal business skills, or how do you build your character? So
well, this is one of the benefits of complexity because I'm already thinking of like character concepts and possible problems in the campaign, and I'm thinking that with us and our kind of PvP leanings, you're gonna have to enforce some sort of like definitive rule of law or morality system or something kind of break, because you can't spell business without sin. There's a reason corporations constantly have scandals. The fact of the matter is, the shittier we are to each other, the more money we'll make. That's just how business works. The more underhanded and undercutting you can be and get away with it, the more money you're going to make. And we're player characters. So it's just going to be a group of monsters marauding through the countryside with total nihilistic Gatsby levels of greed, unless there's some kind of like, medieval FEC, or, you have some sort of religious influence or something holding you back. So I think that'd have to be system-wise. And I didn't even think about that until we started talking about the economy.
Well, I do. There will be some morality in the sense that you remember, all of you are following in the wake of a large army as it's going around conquering other cities and whatnot. And the thing is, the quartermaster is kind of like watching over all of you and making sure if any of you start acting out or get too antisocial, that remember they need as many peddlers following them as possible to keep their army fed and equipped. So like if you kill or betray all the other merchants, they'll just kill you to keep all the other peddlers happy. So that's going to be one thing, is that you can't act out too much, otherwise the army that you're basically a pilot fish swimming alongside the shark. And so
a remora.
Yeah, the remora. And so if they if the shark gets pissed at you, you're dead. So don't.
I just kind of realized we're essentially going to be a whole party of Daniel Plainviews.
Yeah, in a sense. Yeah, if that's how you want to play him, I mean that is a possibility. So
because we're players, there will be blood.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think for the larger topic, that's one thing to bring up. If you're going to bring more complexity in your game, I think it really helps to talk things out. Yeah. Because you've thought this through, but I could see somebody else running like, oh, it's in like an economy game where your business and 3 games in, it's just you're the Enron of the medieval world, just raping and pillaging with impunity with all your money. I think it's good if you're going to talk about complexity, it breeds more complexity. Yeah. And it's really good to have somebody to bounce ideas off of.
I'm definitely going to have rules for businesses. Like there will be like written type rules that will specify like what kind of goods you can sell, how to get them. Like one thing I have in mind is like, in order to set prices, like instead of having to haggle all the fucking time, like the soldier offers you 5 shekels for the dagger, it's worth 12. You roll the haggle. Oh, you can get them to 8, but that's it. Do you accept? Yes, instead of doing that for every single fucking dagger, what we'll do is have one encounter to sort of set a guideline, a baseline. Like you'll do one negotiation or one, and that will be your representative thing.
Also, it makes sense. You're not likely to. If word gets out that they're selling daggers for this much, people are going to expect to buy a dagger for that much, and people will get really pissed if they come up like, oh well, we've had to raise the price to 12, but my 4 other guys I know said they bought them here for 8. Like, well, they're 12 now. Like, well, that's bullshit.
Well, go buy a dagger somewhere else. I mean,
because also you can also remember there'll be someone there willing to sell him a dagger for 8.
Possibly, it is an army in the middle of nowhere, so conquering city to city. But
also, you should. There's rule. You should also have rules for reputation as well.
Well, yeah, there will be, but the idea is like each player will do one negotiation. He'll choose whether he's just an honest, hard bargainer, or if he's going to lie off his ass, or if he's just going to give away the barn. And then that will give him a final modifier for all his prices then on, and then that will be it unless he decides to change something radically. So that Aaron's going to be like, okay, fine, 5 shekels, and then like
I'll split your skull open.
Yeah, exactly. Tom will kill him.
And I think economies, because Eclipse Phase definitely proves this, economies instantly infuse any kind of campaign with a lot of complexity. Yeah. Because there's too many things to consider. So, like, if my character runs behind enemy lines in the battle of the Valley of Flurbadur, and I saved the plucky drummer boy who hung out with me at the tents, like, because I see him suffering, and I become some big hero to the army. I might sell my crappy daggers more than like super mithril ones just because of the ethos of being the one that made it back with the plucky drummer boy. Like, so you can add fame in there. There's all sorts of other considerations.
Yeah.
And an economy, like any kind of barter system, is going to instantly add a layer in a game beyond just me powerful kill thing bad and typical Munchkin X stuff.
I know what character I'm playing. Me kill bad.
Yeah. So and then then
I also have an MBA.
You have to worry about getting employees eventually. You have to get worrying about supplies and protection. Yeah, there's a lot of shit to worry about. So for me, that's my challenge as a GM, coming up with the right level of complexity, because there's also going to be crazy wuxia, Conan / death fights death matches every game as you fight off bandits and kill monsters and pursue side opportunities. Like, the drunk guy says, the drunk native that you buy the rice from says there's a cave full of gold over there, but it's guarded by a 5-headed ogre who shits fire. And you're like, gold, you say?
It's like, he said something else too, but I just heard gold.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of the balance of the game, and so we'll do 6 sessions of that, and we'll see how that goes. But it's a balancing act, and the most complex thing of all is figuring out how much complexity you need. Is that some Zen shit for you?
My mind has just been blown.
So it's sort of about what you think works and what doesn't work. Any other final thoughts on complexity?
And also complexity, it's kind of a group consensus thing too.
Yeah, I think it definitely is. But I think for all of you listening out there, I think you should try to add at least some new complexity to your games, just a little bit, if nothing else. Like, give players that chose a weird skill and have never gotten to use it, give them some sort of advantage for it, or give them like a language skill, or whatever. Yeah. I think I'm going to write up some guidelines for using language as a social skill. Like, as a perception and social skill, to give you, it's not, because when you learn language, you learn about the culture too. I mean, there's just no way around it.
And also, it's true that the better your vocabulary, the better you are able to sell something.
Yeah.
It's like, this weapon will kill your enemy. It says, this enchanted blade has vainglorious designs upon it. Like, well, he sounds like he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
You mentioned group consensus, and I think that's a very good thing we didn't bring up. Like, so for instance, if we played a Doctor Who RPG, the level of complexity I would want out of that, and the level that Aaron would want, would be so drastic that no one would have a good time. Yeah. Like, I would start parroting Aaron's insanity with just like, no, the third light from the left on that sonic screwdriver flashed green when he interacted with base metal. Like, if it was like, I would lose my mind, and I'm just like, no, I sonic screwdriver, and just like, no, it doesn't work like
the Cybermen attack. Oh, the Cybermen have been wiped out at this point in the timeline.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you could like probably break a group if you have somebody who wants way more complexity out of a system than say somebody else. So that is something to consider.
A game that can end a marriage.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, that's it. Like, I want a divorce.
Yeah. I think, that's definitely true. You really, because again, there's all these players, and again, not just setting, there's also like mechanics. Like, there are people who love like keeping track of encumbrance and shit like that. Like every fucking iron ration, every torch, every, bullet or spent, whatever.
Well, some people like inventory management.
Yeah, they do. Like, I'm just saying that they love that shit. And there are other people like, I got things on my character sheet.
Well, that do things. If it isn't armor, a weapon, or a spell or something, they're not interested.
I have a trebuchet. I bought that. That was cheap. What's that do? It does a lot of dice. It does like 10d6 damage.
I attack with my additional notes.
Yeah.
But like, that's why I'm afraid to run Dresden, because Jason and I have read all the books.
Yeah.
And you guys haven't read any of them, right?
No.
So even if I run it, Jason's
I watched most of an episode of it.
Jason's going to be like, I steal one of the warden's stores from the White Council and then call up the blah, 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 blah. And you're going to be like, magic?
Can I kill them?
Yeah.
Magic gun?
Yeah.
With magic?
Well, the vampire attacks, vampires can't do that in Dresden.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like you really got to be on the same page, especially setting-wise for complex.
Yeah, especially franchise settings, things that have established history.
Oh God, Star Wars.
Yeah, well, Star Wars isn't as bad, I think, as some things. I mean, I don't know. Star Trek, I think, is worse in terms of like specificity, like
Yes, the talkie-techie type sci-fi.
Yeah, exactly. Or Doctor Who. I mean, like, I don't know, because Star Wars, there's so many different eras in it. You can just say, oh, well, this is this era, and blah blah blah.
And there's lots of periods in between that no one covers.
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess you could no, this is between the Rebellion era and the Yuzhan Vong invasion.
Yeah.
We didn't cover that much exactly.
Well,
here's where this happened.
HK-47 hangs out with Luke Skywalker, and then they go on the Death Star 5. Yeah, there's a new Death Star. Yeah.
This is like 6,000 years after Legacy.
So yeah. So we're
and technology still hasn't improved that much.
Although already angry.
Actually, it's
a hypothetical situation, and I'm angry.
I was like, okay, totally different thing. I actually was reading one of the Old Republic comics, and they actually go back to like the very beginning of the Sith Order, where lightsabers actually had wires attached to power packs on a belt. They actually showed that.
Nice.
So essentially, in 25 millennia, we've gone to wireless lightsabers.
Well, yeah, like I said, Aaron's the nicest person on Earth, but the only situation I can imagine him stabbing me in is if we played a Doctor Who RPG, because I'd be like, I want to kill Doctor Who. He's a monster. He destroys everything where he goes. He's immortal. He's fucking. I'd Lex Luthor it, and Aaron would stick a pencil through my throat, and it's justified. I would do the same with my pet settings, but that's something to consider when you're going into
I actually did see
things.
recently some fan art of Doctor Who meeting Darth Vader, and it was like Doctor Who using the sonic screwdriver on the lightsaber, and Doctor Vader's like, "What the fuck's going on with my lightsaber?"
I can still choke you to death.
Yeah, it was just a still picture, but I would imagine that would be the next thing, and then this sonic screwdriver would stop that. Cause
it would stop the Force.
It's a plot device. Let's be honest,
the Force is just little midi-chlorians in your blood.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, just think about it. He's an elder god. He's terrifying beyond words. If you're not the companion, he's going to destroy your life. If you survive, which you probably will not.
I just realized. Anyone who's ever played the Elder Scrolls, the Doctor is Sheogorath.
Yeah.
He really is.
Yeah.
A god, an insane god with massive power.
Yeah.
Who can be charming and amusing and also destroy your life.
Agree on your complexity first.
Yes.
I think the level of detail and canon authenticity, definitely for big settings like that. On the note of Doctor Who being an elder god of destruction, we shall pause now, and then when we come back, Tom has a letter.
I do.
We have shout-outs. Caleb has a special review of a novel. And then we have some anecdotes.
He'll go all Gene Shalit on you.
Yep. It's a book review, though, so...
Yeah.
You don't know any book reviewers, do you?
I really don't.
Yeah.
I don't read very much.
And Steve.
Today, I would like to talk about the future. Not the immediate future, like how America will become a socialist nightmare if Obama is reelected in November, or how 100% of people will be in the top 1% of income brackets in the free market paradise if Romney wins. No, I am talking about the distant future, like 100 years from now. Many people have speculated on what will be the true future. This seems to be quite a question nerds tend to really spend a lot of time on. I am no exception, and being a gamer and a nerd will definitely influence the two arbitrary media I use to determine what the future will and will not be. And no, Star Wars will not be one of the media. Yes, it has humans in it, but Earth is not involved. Okay, there was that aborted fetus nightmare that was the Ewoks movie, where 2 kids from Earth get sent to Endor. But I've taken many drugs to forget about that existed. So for what the future will not be, let's go to the nemesis of Star Wars, Star Trek. And I am not going to choose an actual Star Trek series or cast. They all display the reasons why this will never be the future we live in. First of all, it is a post-scarcity society. Like with matter compilers and teleportation, the basic necessity of life, are no longer a concern. That isn't a problem. The problem is that there is no money, not just physical currency, but actual trade. The whole society all works to better the whole. No one thinks only of themselves, and that is fucking bullshit. Human nature doesn't change like that. So the basic necessities of life are taken care of. People would just strive to obtain luxuries. No longer fighting for food and water, they would fight over 70-year-old scotch and diamond-encrusted dick wipers. And how about the damn medical tech? You're telling me you can run glowing tools 3 inches over a mortal wound and have it heal in moments with no scarring, and the lifespan of humanity hasn't gone past 80? That is fucking lame. Totally unworthy as the future of humanity. Now, as a gamer, let me tell you the future I see for humanity. Eclipse phase. Now, this is Eclipse phase without the Titans. Ultra-advanced technology makes basic needs infinite. Fabbers can turn any basic proteins into any food. Nanofilters turn absolute sludge into crystal clear water. Other fabbers allow any item to be crafted for pennies. It leaves you with an entire population of bored immortals where the only thing worth money is entertainment. Whether it's a simul-space environment where you have a harem of Scarlett Johanssons, or jumping into a female octomorph to have a gang of males shoot sperm tarts into you, yes, that is the future I see for the world. A sinister utopia where the act of survival has been replaced by nanofabbers, and the only thing worth spending money on is a brief escape from the endless mundane existence you have. As for me, endless summers of octomorphs and sperm darts, autumns of neo-hominid gorillas and fecal flinging, cold winters on synthmorphs and humping washing machines, and warm springs of a swarmoid groping hundreds of women at once. Have a happy future.
And we're back. First off, Caleb, you have a review of a novel that was sent to us, Liminal States by Zach Parsons, I believe. They were kind enough to... We don't get many review copies, but when we do, we try to review them. And when we don't, I feel bad. So thank you, Caleb, for not making me feel bad.
Anytime, Ross.
Yeah.
When it's convenient and the book's good. Yes, Liminal States by Zach Parsons. It's definitely genre collapse.
Yeah.
But unlike a lot of the stuff that tries to blend genres, it doesn't seem to be the sole reason for existing. There's no way to describe the book as it's genre X meets genre Y in a blank. Like you can't really do that with this, which I like. Liminal States is basically 3 separate novels, is how I envision it. But they have a clear through line with clear characters, and the story starts at the beginning and it ends at the end of the 3rd book. It just so happens that this story takes place over such a long length of time and in a same geographical location that the author represents that change in time by switching genres of the novel. So the initial setup is that a man named Gideon Long has got shot in the desert. I'm not giving anything away. This is on the back. He finds this white pool and descends into it and comes out, and he's perfectly fine and healed. And when he goes to get revenge on the man who gut shot him, he dies again really quickly because he's not that good at the whole killing people thing. And then he pops out of the pool again with all the memories completely unharmed. So basically he's found the Fountain of Youth. He takes the man who shot him, Warren Groves. They have a dispute over their mutual love interest, and they basically curse each other and spend the rest of their lives in some way in conflict with each other eternally. But the pool is not just random, inexplicable, mystical object. It's a major plot point, and it very slowly develops over the centuries until you get to the end of the book. So the book's initially a Western. It then moves to a character's perspective, and it becomes first person, and it becomes a noir. And then at the end, it becomes a dystopian novel. And all the way through, it's an alternate history, because the conflict between these 2 characters changes the face of America. So it's an alternate history, sci-fi, noir, Western.
Another
cosmic
one?
horror.
Another one? This is such a crowded genre.
It's
like dragons versus helicopters in movies. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just like
all over the place.
I know it's well, it sounds like a good effort, you know. No, seriously though, I'm going to read it myself. I just we got the print book, and I didn't want to take it with me to China because I just brought my Kindle with me because that was easy.
I read the Kindle edition.
Yeah.
So I'm not. The only negative thing I have to say about the book is that the Kindle edition had a few typos in it.
Oh, yeah.
But I did not find those on the print version. So it must have been just a transcription thing, I suppose. But
that's unfortunate.
but yeah, the book's very good. It's got a palette. Each novel has a very clear tone and feel to it. I think of it like a color scheme, basically, because in order to keep these characters and keep their story moving forward, but still have it as a different genre, like everything becomes extremely heightened. The Western version is Western. Everything is dusty. There's rattlers every time you're not looking at a character. People are getting gut shot, and there's Apaches scalping. Like, it is Western. And the noir is extremely noir. Like, L.A., fedora hats, bad puns, dames, all that kind of stuff. So it's very heightened, but it definitely works. So,
right.
And I definitely want to run a scenario based off of it, a Cthulhu scenario. So that'll give you RPG nerds a little taste of what you're into without giving anything away, because I don't want to ruin it for you.
Nice. Actually, that reminds me of one other thing. A quick shout out. One of the books I brought a couple books for me on Kindle for reading while I was, flying or whatever in China, and one of them was the Book of Cthulhu, which is a short story anthology that was recently released, and I got it because it had one particular short story that I wanted to read that Scott Glancy told me about, and like he was wanting to base a scenario on it, and it was great. It's called so I read that story and a few others in it. So I haven't read the whole anthology, but the one story alone I think is worth it because it's fucking awesome. It's called Than Curse the Darkness. It's Than Curse the Darkness, and it's by David Drake. And if you can find it in Book of Cthulhu or wherever, just read it because it's a very short story. It's not, didn't take me very long to read, but it's basically King Leopold's Congo. Okay, very pleasant era, right? There's a cult to Athu, who is an avatar of Nyarlathotep, and these basically prototypical Call Cthulhu investigators come in to stop them, but they're like, the whole story is like, why would these cultists worship a god that wants to destroy the world? Oh wait, King Leopold's Congo. Yeah, no, I can kind of get why they would want to do that. And if you, the listener, do not understand why that is, look it up.
Look up King Leopold.
Yeah. Oh fuck yeah. So I could see why you would do that. So there's a couple other short stories that I've read, and they're great. So yeah, if you want Cthulhu short stories, I'd get it. So anyways, Tom.
Yeah.
You wanted to shout out something?
I don't know. Do I? Yes, I do. Yeah. Actually, I just got one. It's a totally way 180 off of the last two things we just talked about. Yeah. It's actually, I mentioned on the forums, it's a British comedy series called Black Books.
Yeah.
As a Irish stand-up comedian, Dylan Moran is the main character. It essentially does British humor about a misanthrope who owns a bookstore, and the two people he deals with every day, and then random people.
Okay.
In the forums, I also posted one of my favorite scenes and characters, which is only in one episode. But it was on the episode "The Grapes of Wrath," and the character the Cleaner. But it really surprised me as a really effective comedy series, which I enjoy a good comedy.
Yeah, I saw that clip and I enjoyed it too. I thought it was pretty funny. I cannot get over British laugh tracks, sitcom laugh tracks. I mean, they're just so like
yeah. Well,
very...
in that particular episode, another scene I might post this when then as the cleaners cleaning their place, they decide to go house sit for a friend so they have somewhere to stay while their place is being cleaned. And it's this one, their friend is a wine aficionado. Yeah. And it takes him down, and he has 10 bottles of wine, Dusty's that don't. Yeah, he has hundreds of other bottles in regular racks, but these 10 says, don't even touch these bottles here. Of course, and they're already kind of drunk, so he says, only drink from these 10 bottles. So they take one and they start pouring it, And like every time they pour it, they have this like counter saying how many pounds worth of this wine they've drunk, and it goes all the way to like 7,000.
Nice. Sounds like
it's a really great series.
Is it on DVD or is it Netflix streaming?
It's on. The whole series is on Netflix.
Okay, so
and I believe it's all. You can also get it on DVD.
Oh, cool.
It's from like the early 2000s.
Very good. Caleb, you mentioned another ebook, Wool.
Yeah, Wool by Hugh Howey. I haven't read the full collection yet, but it's called the Wool Omnibus, and apparently it's based off the first short story in the book, but all the short stories have the same collection.
Yeah.
And it's very, very good. It's very high quality, independently published stuff. I mean, it's not like it's underground or anything. He's getting a lot of credit for it.
Yeah, I've heard of it as well.
But it is of high quality. The basic premise is that there is, generic apocalypse. You don't know what. And everyone lives in
Those are the worst kind.
And everyone lives in a silo.
Yeah.
But the idea is that you have to keep things in order in the silo. There have been uprisings of people who want to leave, but you can't leave because it's bad out there. So the basic premise is that the major crime, like the major snafu in this culture, is to say you want to go outside, and the punishment is death in that they let you go outside, and everybody watches you go outside. And your job is to clean the cameras outside. So the only real major crime in the whole culture is to say you want to leave the silo. And the whole idea of the story is man's need to transgress, man's needs to constantly expand, and how that is so at odds with living in that contained culture. So it's got some pretty deep thematic stuff too, but that's what the stories are basically about. You live in the it's all about, like, if you want to go outside, they let you, and what happens there. And it seemed like an initial just like a short story thing for me at first, but having moved past the first one and moving on, I could definitely, the whole book, I'm very excited to finish it. So.
Oh, great. I'll have to get that as well. Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about it. It's getting a lot of notice, a lot of good reviews. I did get to read a few books while I was in China. One of them, like I mentioned, was Book of Cthulhu, well, part of it. But I also read a book on China called China Road, where it's a journalist, BBC journalist, I believe, who spent 20 years in China covering it. Before he was going to leave, go back to London, he decided to go on a road trip, basically. So he goes all the way from Shanghai to the Chinese border in Kyrgyzstan, which is, fucking thousands of miles. It's a very long trip as he goes on this highway that they've just been building in the last 10 years as they've been expanding the interior. It's kind of like, there's still this westward migration in China as they're building. Like, most of the interior of China is just, desert or mountain. So, like, there's almost all of these, 1.3 billion people are living in the eastern coast or very close to the coast. So he's going all the way from the very densely populated Shanghai all the way to the interior and just meets these different people. There's like 56 ethnic groups in China. There's like Muslims. There are, other the Tibetans, and then Taoist monks, and just it's seen a little bit of the best and the worst in there. And there's office parks selling, Prada products in the middle of the interior of China, cities with 1 million people that you've never heard of. And it's quite a fast, if you want to learn about, get a broad sense of what China's like now, it's a good start. So let's see here. I think, of course, going back to the Cthulhu mythos, I know one of you, Caleb, you're the one who watched the anime series, right?
Yes, yeah. I watched one episode. So
okay, well, let me preface this first. This is I sent an email forwarded. I get emails from fans, and they are like, "Oh, I think," they often ask me questions or leaving comments, and I've gotten at least 2 or 3 emails from fans, different people, just mentioning, "Oh, you should watch this anime series. You guys would like it." So, tell us about Nayarko-san, the Another Crawling Chaos.
All right.
You need some water?
Yeah, pretty much.
You need some beer?
Just prefaces, I don't watch a ton of anime. I watch, Western guy anime, like Cowboy Bebop, Samurai Champloo. I watch poser anime. I'm not into the scene that much, but having seen this, I'm interested to see more because it's just such a completely insane concept There's this boy walking home on the way from school. The sky turns blood red. He's being hunted by a night gaunt. It descends from the sky to try and eat him. And then a Japanese schoolgirl drops from the sky and kicks the night gaunt to death and introduces herself as Nyarlathotep-san. And she says, like, the translation of the subtitle is like, the chaos that is always crawling upwards. Like, it's just completely nuts. And the premise is that she is a Nyarlathotepian, which are a race that police the other races from Lovecraft's mythos, like the Migo and the Yithians, and that she's there to protect him because I didn't get as far as to why they were after this one kid. But apparently Earth is the hot spot in the universe because it has entertainment, specifically doujins, anime, and hentai, which everyone everywhere loves. So
of course.
From that point...
Why not?
From that point forward, it became like hentai Family Guy, or like I caught like a tentacle rape reference that they joked about, and then everything else was... There's a Call of Cthulhu reference to the game itself.
Wow.
She talks about why she can't show him her true form, and it shows a sanity bar on a Call of Cthulhu player sheet drop down to 0. There's references to like giant robots. It's just like this big postmodern meta anime shit. And the best part is the whole time you're like, this is just some crazy bastard underneath an overpass. The Nyarlathotep has driven completely insane. Like, this whole series is totally imagined from some broken Japanese man who's been driven nuts by a cosmic horror. Like, it works, and so it was just weird. So that's it. I've only seen one episode. I'll try and watch more.
You sold me. I'm going to watch all of them.
It's a little weird for my sensibilities, but yeah, it's completely insane.
So RPPR fans, those of you that sent us the link, thank you. Question mark? Let's see. I had I read 2 other books. I'll just mention them real quickly. Or actually, Tom, do you want to talk about the movie we just watched a little while ago?
Well, I think we both need to. I think this needs to be something we both do.
I don't know if this counts as a shout out per se. Maybe a warning.
Well, it's a shout out in the sense I think people should be aware of it.
Oh my god.
Yeah, we watch movies.
Yeah.
And sometimes we enjoy them. Actually, I take it back. We always enjoy them to some degree.
Yeah.
What that degree is. This is one. It was a found footage movie made in 2011 called Evidence.
Yeah.
And it basically starts as just about every single movie like this. Kids go into the woods to film something. And, of course, they're the completely archetypical college kids that go into the woods.
They're douchebags.
The douchebags,
No, they're all douchebags.
Well, they're all douchebags, yeah.
Yeah.
And then, they start seeing weird stuff. And I'll admit, actually, some of the early weird stuff is kind of not bad.
Yeah, there's this weird mark about the 30-40 minute thing where you think, oh wow, this is a new take on this kind of the genre of the Blair Witch kind of found footage thing. And then it just no.
And then apparently it's almost like they switched writers, directors, cinematographers. Now suddenly, all right, now we're going to start throwing everything.
Literally,
everything.
Yeah, no, they just they never explain shit. There's just random
locations, random people.
The military shows up for no reason. It's like they camped a quarter mile outside of a military base because they run for 5 minutes and suddenly there's guys with guns yelling at them, and then there's crazy zombie
they're
people.
In some fenced off arena type thing with searchlights.
Oh my god! And then there's crazy zombie people. There's a crazy rat thing. There's
first they're ordered to halt. Then they're helped by the military. Then they're basically captured, then re-helped.
Yeah. And then they're next to some massive warehouse facility with offices and labs and the pregnant alien woman. Yeah, that was
there's a screen there's a computer screen with a DNA helix.
Yeah,
so obviously they're doing science.
There's just they don't even, and they never explain fucking shit about it. It just happens, and then she gets on a helicopter in the end, and then they show like 5 minutes,
and then the credits,
or just like special ops wankery which After Effects filter did they use? All of they used all of After Effects. They just like, let's make it green and blue and red, and like have little circle thing tracking. It's like.
Seriously, I want to meet the people that made this and say, please just explain this to me. That's all I want to know. Please explain this to me.
Oh my God.
I had one more, actually.
Oh, yeah?
While we were talking about Lovecraft and books constantly, I really want to get, although I don't have the money, but have you The Weird, a compendium of strange and dark stories. Have you heard of this? It's a collection of weird fiction, and it's by Jeff Vandermeer and his wife, Anne Vandermeer.
Yeah, I know that.
What reminds me of it is that we're on Huffington Post today talking about some of the stories in it.
Yeah.
And it's not just Lovecraft and, the occasional Stephen King or Gaiman story that falls into that. It covers from like 1908 to 2010 all over the world. It's 1,192 pages long.
Jesus.
So apparently it's just like this speculative weird fiction compendium that is just encyclopedian in nature. Like,
wow,
and all the reviews are really into it. And on Huffington Post today, they put up like 13 weirdest stories ever written. I'm like, okay, I'm like trying to predict what's on there. I did not know a single story on there, which is not saying that I've read everything, but they definitely range far and wide. Like,
I'll have to look at that. Yeah.
So it's a pretty expensive hardcover book, but it's got a pretty sweet, tentacly Lovecraftian cover,
awesome.
And apparently it goes beyond just the stuff you've heard of.
Right.
And it is freaking huge. So
nice. I'll have to get that. I'll have to look into getting that. That sounds awesome. So the other two books I read while I was in China. One was A Corpse in Koryo, which is a detective novel written by an American intelligence officer who spent 30 years covering North Korea, basically, from South Korea. So it's set in North Korea, and it's about a police inspector in Pyongyang who gets caught up in internal intrigue between the various security agencies. There's a murder in a hotel in Pyongyang, and there's these various schemes by these warring factions within the North Korean government. And a human, like the inspector himself, is just a nice guy. He's just like, I want to have tea and maybe solve a crime if they ask me, but whatever, I'll just ride on my bicycle. But no, he gets caught up in, there's murders and just like intrigue, and it's very atmospheric and gives you a sense of what it, like. One of my goals is to run a game set in North Korea and make it interesting and not just like a stereotypical thing, because it's the Hermit Kingdom. It's such an isolated, weird, reclusive country that I'd like to try and humanize and see what the people are like in there. Because most of the people there are suffering. They don't have any choice. They have to be there. So and just as a really good noir novel, crime detective novel, it's really interesting, really good. So the third book I read was The Stealth of Nations, which is about the global informal economy. It's a recent book, came out this year or last year, and basically this guy just studies how the global economy has affected street merchants and informal businesses around the world, and how people dealing with the bureaucracies and taxes and that shit's not really profitable, so we're just going to ignore it. And in most of the developing world, it's like a massive economy. I mean, the scale of the amount of money being made and exchanged by all these merchants is ridiculous. Tens of billions, hundreds of billions of dollars worldwide. And so there's just numerous opportunities for modern games, not just like the criminal aspect. And I'm not talking about the drug dealing or anything
just
like
stuff.
that. Yeah, just stuff. Like, again, vendors selling like sunglasses on the side of the streets, and people
kitschy little statues.
Yeah, or going to China, getting shit made and bringing it back to your home country. So again, it gives you a sense of it gives you a lot of ideas too. Like for me, in Nigeria, the electrical system is so unstable that every business has their own generators. They sell generators there from like the size of like a shoebox to like the size of a building for various size business. So just imagine this. I could imagine a post-apocalyptic society or a near dystopian one where people just use generators for everything, and just imagining that, or just like the various taxi systems where taxis aren't cars. Like just get on a motorcycle, somebody's motorcycle and drive off. Ducking and weaving through traffic. So there's a lot of good ideas in it.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I think that covers pretty much all the little shout-outs we have. Yeah. So finally, we have anecdotes. And while I was gone, you guys still role-played, but amazingly, I guess. So
Yeah, we did. We had some games.
Yeah.
They were pretty good. But I think the weird thing is no RPG we played could measure up to the board game we played in intensity and excitement and, just tension.
Yeah.
Yeah, every time I've played Arkham,
Arkham Horror.
Yeah, Arkham Horror. We've either just stomped the hell, like what mythos, boo, or it's just been doomed from the start. Like there was never any hope. We got an hour into the game, and we were just like, we are fucked, and then we were fucked. And this game, I've never seen anyone pull it out so haphazardly. Like everybody had one hit point, one sanity left. Oh. We had so many monster surges on the board. There were it was so nuts.
Because the number of players, it's like the outskirts got filled up really quick, and then we had like 5 monster surges in a row. So no more monsters could go on the board, so they all went to the outskirts. We almost never have had the terror track go higher than 2. It was at 10. Like the terror track was at 10. The doom track I had only 2 left before the old one awoke, and if that happened, we might as well not fight the battle. And, of course, we were at the second act of The King in Yellow. It was basically every possible way we could lose the game was about to happen.
But by the time we finished it, we pulled the cards. We would have added Tune to the Doom track if we'd pulled that card. The next card we pulled was the yellow sign, third act. So the game instantly ends. There would have been another monster surge. Like if we'd played one more turn, like one more part of a turn, the game.
There were 8 blight cards.
Yeah, 8 blight cards.
Wow.
Yeah, if we played one more turn,
because we kept drawing a lot. We kept drawing a lot of cards that were either advance the Doom track or draw some blight cards. So 8 people were completely insane. And one of them was it takes one more clue token to seal a gate.
Wow.
Yeah, it was nuts.
I can't imagine you being able to do anything with that many blights on the table.
Well, we had it's not like we weren't making progress. It's just that shit got steadily worse.
Did any characters die?
No, we didn't have anybody get devoured.
But we were all battered, bruised, bloody, and
and yeah, if it had gone any further, it wouldn't have mattered. Everybody would have been like an end of the world.
Who was the ancient one for the record?
Oh, who was it?
What?
I think is it Nyathoga? Nyathoga, or the one that has the tendril special.
The black made of pure inky blackness or whatever. Yeah, Nyoga though.
In Iogotha. Yeah, that was the one. And yet somehow, I think it was Tila, our friend Tila was playing with us. The luckiest draw drew an Elder Sign. For the last gate we had, there's basically no one had enough clue tokens to seal a gate. Yeah. Suddenly she gets one, and a supreme act of teamwork. Like, okay, we cover her ass to the next gate. She gets to that gate. And we do everything we can. Like we just went suicidally after monsters on the board to make sure we didn't have yet another monster surge. And somehow she got out, had just enough health and sanity to spend to play it. We sealed the 6th gate. The next 2 turns, we would have lost the game. The next 3 consecutive turns in a row.
Yeah.
Whatever card we would have drawn, that would have been it.
Wow.
I was thinking of this. It just came up. Second tiny anecdote. So I had a high school student she was really into Cabin in the Woods, and so she was asking me all about it because she thought it was just the best movie ever, and it's pretty damn
It's
good.
The best movie of this year.
Yeah, you should definitely go see it. And I mentioned that it had Lovecraftian overtones, and she's like, "Who's that?" So I gave her some Lovecraft to read, and she really liked it.
Yeah,
and it's weird because she's not the type of girl that would really like Lovecraft, like you would ever think. She's really into sports, like straight A's, all that kind of stuff. But she just got really into Lovecraft at the end of the year. And the other day, last week, it's near the end of the year, she came to me, she's like, all right, I really like stories, but how do I say this word? How do I say this word? How do I say this? So, I'm a bad person, so I'm like, how do you think you say it?
Oh, that is
So
the
every
worst.
time I was
Answering a question with a question.
And it's so if you ever want fun, try and get a high schooler that has no idea what they're talking about to randomly pronounce Lovecraftian mythos stuff because it's so horrible. Like he was such a bastard just for naming it. And it could be Cthulhu or it could be Cthulhu or
Cthulhu.
There's debate.
Yeah, well, the other people
so-
are wrong. There's debate about whether the Earth is flat.
Azathoth, Nyarlathotep,
Nyarlathotep.
Okay.
D-Doles.
All right.
I want to say
Doles.
D-holes every time.
Hey, Yig's, Yig's pretty easy.
Yig's pretty easy.
Yig's not officially. I mean, that was written by another author.
Yib Sithel.
Oh, that's Ramsey. He doesn't even count. That's
But-
the
But
lesser
I
author.
mean,
Shagnarthon.
Or no, Robert Ludlum. Sorry. Anyway.
yeah. So I was just I had a good time with that for a few minutes
That's-
before I correct.
Well, Dagon's pretty easy.
So
Yeah.
teach your little brother to say
Yeah.
mythos words out there.
Yeah. But the RPG has a pronunciation guide. That's how I learned.
Just get her into role playing.
It's on the internet.
You'd
too.
be great in education, Ross.
I know.
You're wrong. You're wrong, and I hate you. F.
Yeah. So on that note, I
remind
will
me of-
never be a teacher.
You remind me of that episode of Amazing Stories where
Yeah.
I think it was Amazing Stories, the movie, where Christopher Lloyd is playing the really harsh English professor.
Yeah.
He says, your papers were, of course, insulting. F, D minus. Your spelling was good.
All right. Yeah. I'll take it. Something horrible happens to him, right?
Oh, they try to curse him with just hiccuping.
Yeah.
They end up accidentally killing him, and so they try to resurrect him, but they need a graven image, so they're using the picture from the yearbook, which they accidentally tear the head off the.
Thanks, Tom.
Off of it, so his body stands up and is separated from his head.
Nice. All right. Fair enough, I guess. So
That would be your fate too.
Yeah. So this is Ross Baden. This has been RPPR episode 73, the Complexity Complex.
You stay classy, Planet
Yeah.
Earth.
Yeah. Stay.